Miss Santos, Mr. Reed will see you now. I smoothed down my charcoal pencil skirt, mentally rehearsing the presentation I'd spent weeks perfecting. This meeting could change everything for me, for my career, for my struggling family back home, for my future. The assistant's polite smile didn't reach her eyes as she assessed me. I was used to that look by now. It said, "You don't belong here." Maybe she was right. 5 years ago, I'd been waiting tables in a diner to pay my way through college. Now I was about to pitch to Ethan Reed, one of the youngest billionaires in New York and CEO of Reed Innovations. I followed her through a maze of glass and steel, my practical heels clicking on the marble floors of the 60th floor executive suite. Everything about Reed Tower screamed wealth and power, from the original artwork adorning the walls to the spectacular Manhattan skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Through here," the assistant said, gesturing to an imposing black door at the end of the hallway. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The office was unexpectedly minimalist, spacious with clean lines, dominated by a massive desk of dark wood and a wall of windows that made the city below look like a toy model. But it wasn't the decor that caught me off guard. It was him. Ethan Reed looked nothing like the carefully curated photos that occasionally appeared in business magazines. Those showed a serious, almost stern executive in perfect suits. The man rising from behind the desk was something else entirely. Yes, the tailored navy suit was there, probably costing more than my rent. But the man inside it was unexpectedly young, 32 according to my research, but he could have passed for younger if not for the subtle lines of authority etched around his eyes. His dark hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. And his eyes, piercing blue, assessing, intelligent, fixed on me with an intensity that made my carefully prepared opening line evaporate. "Elena Santos," he said, his voice deep and smooth. Not a question. He already knew exactly who I was. "Mr. Reed," I managed, stepping forward with my hand extended. "Thank you for taking this meeting." His handshake was firm, his hand engulfing mine. A strange current seemed to pass between us at the contact, and I quickly withdrew. "Your proposal interested me," he said, gesturing for me to take a seat in one of 2 leather chairs facing his desk. Though I admit I was surprised Harrison and Bell sent their newest junior analyst for such an important pitch. I sat down, setting my portfolio on my lap. "They didn't send me, Mr. Reed. This is my independent project." One dark eyebrow rose. "You're here, without your firm's knowledge?" I lifted my chin. "I've taken a personal day. If Harrison and Bell wants to claim credit after you approve my proposal, that's between you and them." A faint smile touched his lips. "Bold move, Miss Santos." "Necessary move," I corrected. My ideas were being ignored or, worse, attributed to senior partners. So here I am. "Here you are," he echoed, studying me with new interest. "You have 15 minutes to convince me why Reed Innovations should invest $20 million in your microfinance project." I opened my portfolio, ready to launch into my carefully crafted presentation, but he raised a hand to stop me. "No slides, no prepared speech. Just tell me what you're passionate about and why I should care." I stared at him, momentarily thrown. Everything I'd prepared, the market analysis, the projected returns, the case studies, suddenly seemed inadequate. So I closed the portfolio and spoke from my heart instead. I grew up in a small town in Arizona, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. We lived paycheck to paycheck, always one emergency away from disaster. I leaned forward, warming to my subject. When I was 16, my mother needed emergency surgery. No insurance, no savings. A small local credit union gave her a lifeline, a small loan with terms she could actually meet. Ethan had leaned back in his chair, those intense eyes never leaving my face. "That loan saved us," I continued. "But most people in similar situations aren't so lucky. They turn to predatory lenders, get trapped in debt cycles, or lose everything trying to weather a crisis. My proposal is about creating scalable microfinance solutions for working-class Americans, the forgotten middle who make too much for government assistance, but too little to build financial security." "Charitable," he commented, expression unreadable. But Reed Innovations isn't a philanthropy. This isn't charity, I countered. It's smart business. There are 80 million Americans living paycheck to paycheck, many with solid work histories and untapped potential. Help them stabilize, and you create new consumers, new entrepreneurs, new investors. A 5% return on their success is conservative. He was silent for a long moment, just watching me. I fought the urge to fidget under his scrutiny. You're different than I expected, Miss Santos, he finally said. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. He glanced at his watch. Your 15 minutes are up, but I'm not done with you. Have dinner with me tonight. We'll discuss your proposal further. The abrupt invitation caught me off guard. Dinner? Yes, the meal typically eaten in the evening, he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Unless you have other plans? Other plans? My exciting evening ahead consisted of takeout and spreadsheets in my tiny apartment. No other plans, I admitted. But is dinner necessary? I'm happy to continue our discussion now. I have another meeting in 10 minutes. Besides, his eyes made a quick, subtle assessment of me that somehow wasn't offensive but sent heat rushing to my cheeks. I prefer getting to know potential partners over good food and wine. Potential partners. The phrase hung between us, carrying multiple meanings I wasn't sure he intended. This would be a business dinner, I clarified. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Interest? Of course. My driver will pick you up at 7. It wasn't really a request, I noticed. Ethan Reed was clearly a man accustomed to people accommodating his schedule, not the other way around. I can meet you at the restaurant, I countered, needing to maintain some control of the situation. He smiled then, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face into something dangerously attractive. Stubborn. I like that. Fine. Le Bernardin at 7. Le Bernardin. Only one of the most exclusive restaurants in Manhattan, with a months-long waiting list and entrees that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I'll be there, I said, gathering my things and standing. No way would I show how intimidated I felt. He rose as well, coming around the desk. He was taller than I'd realized, at least 6'2" to my 5'7". Until tonight, Miss Santos. He extended his hand again. This time when our hands met, he held mine a beat longer than necessary, his thumb brushing lightly over my knuckles. The gesture seemed both deliberate and unconscious, sending an unexpected shiver up my arm. Until tonight, I echoed, withdrawing my hand and turning to leave before he could see the effect he had on me. As I rode the elevator down 60 floors, I tried to make sense of what had just happened. I'd come for a business meeting and somehow ended up with a dinner date with one of the most eligible bachelors in New York. No, not a date, I reminded myself firmly. A business dinner. With a devastatingly handsome billionaire who could make or break my career with a single word. What could possibly go wrong? Everything about Le Bernardin intimidated me, from the discreet entrance to the hushed, reverent atmosphere inside. I'd spent the afternoon agonizing over what to wear before finally settling on a simple black dress that was the most expensive thing in my closet, a splurge from my first bonus at Harrison and Bell. Good evening, miss. Do you have a reservation? The receptionist asked, his expert eyes assessing me and finding me barely acceptable. She's with me, Antoine, came a familiar deep voice from behind me. I turned to find Ethan Reed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that made his eyes appear even more intensely blue. He'd changed since our meeting, and looking at him now, confident, powerful, undeniably attractive, I felt a flutter of nervousness that had nothing to do with my business proposal. Mr. Reed, of course. Your table is ready, Antoine said, his demeanor instantly warming. Ethan placed his hand lightly on the small of my back to guide me through the restaurant, the gentle pressure sending an absurd tingle up my spine. I was acutely aware of the other diners' curious glances. Ethan Reed was evidently well known here, and people were undoubtedly wondering who I was. Nobody, I thought. Just a junior analyst with big dreams and a small bank account, desperately out of her depth. We were seated at a secluded corner table with a spectacular view of the city lights. A waiter immediately appeared with a bottle of champagne. I didn't order. I began. I took the liberty. Ethan said as the waiter poured 2 glasses. Dom Perignon. To celebrate your initiative. We haven't made a deal yet, I reminded him, accepting the glass. I admire optimism, he replied, raising his glass. To new ventures. I clinked my glass against his, taking a small sip of what was undoubtedly the most expensive champagne I'd ever tasted. It was delicious, but I was determined to keep my wits about me. So, he said, setting down his glass and studying me with those penetrating eyes. Tell me something the impressive resume I read doesn't cover. Who is Elena Santos when she's not developing revolutionary finance models? The question caught me off guard. I'd prepared to discuss interest rates and implementation timelines, not personal details. There's not much to tell, I said cautiously. I work, I sleep occasionally, I try to call my mother at least once a week. No boyfriend? Girlfriend? He asked casually, though his eyes were intent. My last relationship ended 6 months ago. We wanted different things. What did you want? He asked, leaning slightly forward. I hesitated.
More.
Challenge.
Growth.
Purpose. I shook my head. He wanted comfort and predictability. And you don't. Not at the expense of making a difference. I took another sip of champagne, wondering why I was telling him this. What about you? The tabloids seem to link you to a new model or actress every month. His smile was sardonic. The tabloids greatly exaggerate my social life. I date occasionally, but I'm married to my work. It's hard to find someone who understands that. Or someone who isn't after your money. I added without thinking. Instead of being offended, he laughed, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his face.
Direct.
I like that about you, Elena. The way he said my first name sent a small thrill through me that I immediately tried to suppress. Since we're being direct, I said, setting down my glass, why am I really here, Mr. Reed? You could have had your team review my proposal and send a form rejection like every other company I've approached. He regarded me thoughtfully. First, if we're having dinner, I think you can call me Ethan. He leaned back as the waiter arrived with our first course, something delicate and beautifully arranged that I didn't recognize. And second, I don't delegate decisions that interest me personally. And my proposal interests you personally? Why? He waited until the waiter departed before answering. Because it's flawed but brilliant. I blinked. Flawed. Your implementation strategy is too cautious. The scalability is underestimated. And your return projections are conservative. I finished for him. Deliberately. I'd rather exceed expectations than fall short. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. As I said, brilliant in concept, flawed in ambition. He took a bite of his food. But there's something else. What?
You.
Coming to me directly, bypassing your firm, taking a risk. His eyes held mine. I'm curious what other risks you're willing to take. My heart beat a little faster at the subtle shift in his tone. For the right opportunity, I'd consider many things. The double meaning hung between us, undeniable and electric. Dinner progressed through multiple exquisite courses, our conversation flowing from business to personal and back again. I learned that Ethan had built Reed Innovations from a startup in his garage to a tech empire in just 8 years. That he'd grown up wealthy but had refused his family's money, determined to succeed on his own terms. That beneath his controlled exterior lay a sharp wit and surprising compassion. And I found myself sharing things I rarely discussed, my struggle to fit into the cutthroat world of finance while staying true to my values, my dream of creating economic opportunities for communities like the one I'd grown up in, even my guilty pleasure of watching terrible reality TV when work stress became too much. By dessert, the business pretense of our dinner had evolved into something far more personal. Something that made my skin feel too warm and my thoughts too scattered. I should be going, I said as the waiter cleared our dessert plates. It's getting late. Let me drive you home, Ethan offered, signaling for the check. That's not necessary. It's nearly midnight, Elena. His concern seemed genuine. Humor me. Before I could argue further, he'd paid the bill, never once glancing at the amount, and was guiding me out of the restaurant with that same gentle hand at the small of my back. Outside, a sleek black Bentley waited at the curb, a driver standing at attention beside it. "James, we'll be taking Miss Santos home," Ethan said as the driver opened the rear door. The back of the Bentley was like a luxury lounge, all soft leather and subtle lighting. As we pulled away from the curb, I found myself acutely aware of Ethan beside me, his subtle cologne, the way his thigh almost but didn't quite touch mine. "You never actually told me what you thought of my proposal," I said, needing to break the charged silence. He turned those intense eyes on me. "I'm going to counter the offer." My heart sank. "You're not interested?" "On the contrary, I'm very interested."
His gaze held mine.
"But not in the $20 million project you proposed. I want to commit $50 million and create a new division within Reed Innovations to implement it, with you at the helm." I stared at him. "What?" "I'm offering you a job, Elena. Director of Social Impact Finance. Full autonomy, reporting directly to me, with a team and resources to make your vision a reality." My mind reeled. Director level? That was at least 3 promotions above my current position.
"Why?"
"You barely know me." "I know enough." His confidence was absolute. "I know you're brilliant, passionate, and unwilling to play politics to get ahead. I know you see possibilities others miss. And I know you don't back down from a challenge.
"But..."
"Your salary would be triple what Harrison and Bell pays you, plus stock options." He looked utterly serious. "And before you ask, no, this has nothing to do with our dinner or any personal interest I might have in you." I felt my cheeks flush. I wasn't going to suggest that. His smile was knowing. "Yes, you were. You're wondering if this is some elaborate ploy to get you into my bed." The bluntness of his statement made me gasp. "Mr. Reed." "Ethan," he corrected gently. "And for the record, while I find you extremely attractive, I never mix business with pleasure. If you accept this position, any personal relationship between us would be impossible." The car had stopped, I realized. We were outside my apartment building in Brooklyn, a far cry from wherever Ethan Reed called home. "How do you know where I live?" I asked, momentarily sidetracked. "I had my assistant look up your address for the driver." Of course he did. Nothing was left to chance in Ethan Reed's world. "I need time to think about your offer," I said finally. "Understandable." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, writing something on the back before handing it to me. "My personal number.
"Call me when you decide."
But don't take too long. I'm not known for my patience." Our fingers brushed as I took the card, that same inexplicable current passing between us. "Thank you for dinner," I said, suddenly awkward. "And for considering my proposal." "Thank you for surprising me," he replied. "It doesn't happen often." The driver opened my door, and I stepped out into the warm night air, feeling like I'd stepped out of a dream and back into reality. Ethan rolled down his window. "One more thing, Elena," he said, his expression unreadable in the shadows. "If you decline my offer, call me anyway. Once you're not a potential employee, that other impossibility becomes very possible indeed." Before I could respond, the window rolled up and the Bentley pulled smoothly away from the curb, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with my head spinning, and a decision to make that would change my life either way. I barely slept that night, my mind racing with possibilities. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I called in sick to Harrison and Bell, then spent 3 hours researching everything I could about Reed Innovations' corporate culture, employee reviews, and most importantly, Ethan Reed's business ethics. Everything I found confirmed my gut feeling. His company was genuinely innovative, employee-focused, and committed to ethical practices. At precisely 10 a.m., I called the number on the back of his card. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan Reed." "It's Elena Santos." Elena. Just my name, but the way he said it made my stomach flutter. "Have you decided?" "I have conditions," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. "Of course you do. Name them." "Full creative control of the program. A 5-year commitment regardless of initial results. And 10% of the profits go to a scholarship fund for underprivileged students." "Done," he said without hesitation. Anything else? I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would define my career and possibly my life.
Just one more thing, I said.
I need your word that our personal connection won't complicate this professional relationship. Another pause, longer this time. So, you're accepting the position? Yes, I said firmly. This opportunity is too important for me and for the communities this program could help. I can't let anything distract from that mission. I understand, he said, his voice carefully neutral. And you have my word. Our working relationship will remain strictly professional. Then I accept your offer, Mr. Reed. Back to Mr. Reed already? There was a hint of wistfulness in his tone. During business hours, yes, I replied. I think it's better that way. As you wish, Director Santos. He cleared his throat. My HR team will contact you today with a formal offer. When can you start? I need to give Harrison and Belle 2 weeks' notice. 2 weeks, then. He paused. I look forward to working with you, Elena. Likewise, Ethan, I said softly, ending the call before I could change my mind. My first month at Reed Innovations passed in a whirlwind of activity. I assembled a team of financial experts and community development specialists, established partnerships with credit unions across 5 states, and developed the framework for what we were calling the Foundation Initiative, a microfinance program specifically targeting working-class Americans with limited access to traditional financial services. True to his word, Ethan maintained strict professionalism. Our interactions were limited to weekly progress meetings and occasional strategic planning sessions, always with other executives present. If anyone noticed the subtle tension between us, the way our eyes sometimes lingered a moment too long, how we carefully avoided any physical contact, they didn't mention it. These implementation timelines are too conservative, Ethan said during one such meeting, pushing the report I'd prepared back across the conference table. We need to be in 20 markets by Q3, not 10. 20 markets would stretch our resources too thin, I countered. Quality control would suffer. Hire more people. It's not just about headcount. Building trust in these communities takes time. We locked eyes across the table, neither willing to back down. The other executives exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Perhaps we could compromise at 15 markets, suggested Michael, the CFO. Ethan held my gaze for a moment longer before nodding. 15, with provisions for rapid expansion if the initial results are positive. I can work with that, I conceded. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, Ethan touched my arm lightly. Stay a moment. When we were alone, he closed the conference room door and turned to me with a sigh. This isn't working, is it? My heart sank. The project? I thought. No. The project is exceeding expectations. I meant this. He gestured between us. The pretense that there's nothing between us but professional respect. I stared down at my notes. We agreed. I know what we agreed, he interrupted. And I've honored that agreement. But I can't stop thinking about you, Elena. About what might have been if you'd made a different choice that night. I looked up, meeting those intense blue eyes. I made the right choice, Ethan. This project is important. It's already changing lives. I'm not asking you to choose, he said quietly. Not anymore. Then what are you asking? He stepped closer. Have dinner with me tonight. Not as CEO and director. Just as Ethan and Elena. That would complicate things. Life is complicated, he said with a half smile. But some complications are worth it. I hesitated, torn between professional caution and the undeniable pull I felt toward him. One dinner, I finally agreed. But we need ground rules. His smile widened. I would expect nothing less from you. Dinner that night was nothing like our first at Le Bernardin. Instead of an exclusive restaurant, Ethan took me to a small Italian place in the village, warm, intimate, with red-checked tablecloths and candles stuck in Chianti bottles. No one will recognize me here, he explained as we were seated in a corner booth. I wanted somewhere we could just be ourselves. And somehow, we were. Without the pressure of a business proposal or job offer between us, conversation flowed easily. We talked about books we loved, places we wanted to travel, childhood memories, future dreams. I learned that beneath his billionaire exterior, Ethan was surprisingly down-to-earth, a man who missed cooking his own meals and sometimes sneaked out of his penthouse to walk in Central Park at dawn when he could be alone with his thoughts. "Why finance?" he asked as we shared a tiramisu. "With your mind, you could have done anything." "Money is power," I said simply. Growing up without it taught me that. I wanted to understand how it worked, how it flowed through the world. And then I wanted to change that flow, direct some of it to places and people normally left dry. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That's what attracted me to your proposal. Not just the numbers, though those were impressive. It was the vision, seeing money as a tool for change, not just profit." "Is that why you gave me the job?" "Because we share that vision."
"Partly," he admitted.
"And partly because I've never met anyone who challenges me the way you do. You make me think differently." Our eyes met over the candle flame, and that now familiar electricity crackled between us. "This is dangerous," I murmured. "The best things usually are." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "We're both adults, Elena. We can navigate this if we choose to." "And if it doesn't work out? What happens to the Foundation initiative then?" "It's bigger than both of us now," he said seriously. "The board has approved the full 5-year funding. Your team is in place. Nothing would jeopardize that." "You promise?" "I promise." His thumb traced circles on my palm, sending shivers up my arm. "But I think we owe it to ourselves to at least try." We took it slowly, dinner once a week, always in out-of-the-way places where Ethan wouldn't be recognized. At work, we maintained our professional distance, though the tension between us had transformed from awkward to charged with possibility. 3 months into our careful courtship, Ethan invited me to his home, not the sleek penthouse, but a secluded beach house in the Hamptons. "This is where I come to escape," he explained as we walked along the private stretch of shoreline, the autumn wind whipping my hair around my face. "No one from the office knows about this place." "It's beautiful," I said, taking in the weathered cedar shingles and expansive windows facing the ocean. "It feels real. Not like what I'd expect from a billionaire workaholic," he finished with a smile. "Something like that." He took my hand, his warm fingers intertwining with mine. "I've never brought anyone here before." I glanced up at him, surprised. No one," he confirmed. "This has always been my sanctuary. But lately, it's felt empty." We stopped walking, facing each other as the waves crashed nearby. "Elena," he said, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "These past months getting to know you, seeing the passion you bring to your work, watching you fight for people most of my peers wouldn't give a second thought. It's changed me." My heart raced. "Ethan, let me finish," he said gently. "I know we started this all backward, business first, then this careful dance around our feelings. But I'm tired of being careful with you. I didn't let him finish, rising on tiptoe to press my lips to his. He responded immediately, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me close as the kiss deepened. It was everything I'd been imagining for months, tender yet passionate, a perfect fusion of the connection we'd been building. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. I was going to say, "I want to do this right." "This feels pretty right to me," I murmured, making him laugh. "It does," he agreed. "But I mean it, Elena. I don't want to hide what we have. Not anymore." "What about work?" I asked. "The company has policies, which don't apply when the CEO is involved," he said wryly.
"Perks of the job."
"But if you're concerned about appearances, I understand. We can keep things discreet." "No," I interrupted. "No more hiding. If we're doing this, we're doing it openly. I'm proud of my work, and I won't have anyone thinking I advanced because of us." His smile was tender. "Anyone who's seen you in action would never think that." Later that night, as we sat by the fire in his beach house, Ethan pulled me against him, his arms warm and secure around me. "You know," he mused, "when you walked into my office that first day, I had this strange thought." "What was that?" "That my life was about to change completely." He pressed a kiss to my temple. I was right. I smiled, nestling closer. Mine too. 6 months later, the foundation initiative had expanded to 25 markets, more than even Ethan's ambitious target. The program was being hailed as a revolutionary approach to community finance, with impressive early results. My team had grown to 30 people, all passionate about our mission. More importantly, Ethan and I had found our rhythm, partners in both business and life. Our relationship had raised eyebrows initially, but my continued fierce independence and the program's success quickly silenced any whispers about favoritism. Ready for this? Ethan asked as we stood backstage at a national finance conference where I was about to deliver the keynote address. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied, smoothing down my suit jacket nervously. He caught my hand, bringing it to his lips. You're going to be amazing. You always are. Flatterer, I teased, but his confidence steadied me. Just stating facts, Director Santos. His eyes were warm with pride and something deeper. Go change the world. I'll be right here waiting. As I stepped onto the stage to share the vision that had brought me into Ethan's office a year ago, a vision now becoming reality, I realized that I'd found something I never expected, a partner who challenged me to dream bigger, fight harder, and love more completely than I'd ever thought possible. I'd walked into Reed Tower that day hoping to fund a project. Instead, I'd found my future professionally and personally. As I caught Ethan's eye in the front row, his smile encouraging and full of love, I knew that sometimes the greatest risks led to the greatest rewards.
The end.